Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Tales of the 2S LGBTQ. My name is Douglas Parsons. My guest today is Christina Owczarek. Christina is the founder of XHale Brewery based in Calgary, Alberta. Her motto is making the world a better place one pint at a time. Yeah, she's after my heart, I think. She came to my attention through a personal friend of ours, Matt Phillips, one of the owners of Northern Chicken. And you can check out Matt's episode, which we released a couple months back. It's an excellent episode. You'll learn a lot. Now, Christina is an Australian born Alberta craft beer personality, and she's well known for her industry marketing and sales game, and she doesn't pull any punches. When Matt was discussing with me future guests, he's like, you've got to get Christina. And so it's her talent bringing people to the table and getting the suds into them as well. Now, Australian born, I now also know through research that she spent time in Santa Rosa, California. This is where she gained some of her craft beer background. I'm also interested in finding out about this nickname that she's gotten based on Foster's. We'll find out more about that as well. What's great about Christina is that she has faced her own trials and tribulations, and she continues to share her awareness and resources, which open up dialogue on what really matters. And we're going to get into that today. I'm excited for this interview. Before I bring Christina to your listening ears, this podcast, Tales of the 2S LGBTQ+, is a weekly audio and video podcast that showcases the remarkable people like Christina, and perhaps you one day, who are part of this 2S LGBTQ+ family. It's by listening to our stories, your stories, where we gain insight, understanding, and connection. So let's continue to connect in 2022 as these stories are shared. This episode was taped live, and do expect that there could be some unexpected hijinks, snafus, and other things that have taken place. It likely has happened. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other audio platforms, please leave a starred rating, a comment. Those comments and ratings do help us get recognized through the algorithms, which is great. And if you're watching us here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, get notifications when future stories are released. I'm based here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and it's important for me to say that, as I would like to acknowledge that I am on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Sato, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. I acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries, especially the knowledge keepers and elders who are with us today and those who have gone before. I continue to open myself up to listen, to learn, and to understand, and I hope you join me on this journey as well as we learn the truth. It's now time to bring Christina up on your screen to share her story. Christina, welcome to Tales of the 2S LGBTQ+.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm on Treaty 7 over here in Calgary, but I'm originally from the Birrarung region out in Victoria, which is the Melbourne region along the Birrarung River of Maribyrnong.
Perfect. Well, how does someone from Australia find their way to California and then make their way up here to Calgary?
Well, originally, California was a secondary stop. I almost married who we will affectionately call the American. Clearly, that didn't work out. And I made my way back here. I hear he has a wonderful wife and baby now, which I was probably not going to do. I was probably just going to give birth to a big old brewery out in Northern California. Yeah, I landed November 9th, 2009 on Canadian soil. I was only going to ever come for one ski season. Actually prior to that, I had a visa to go to the UK after my first ski season in Australia. But that ended up falling through, and I ended up following a friend of mine over, and she'd already done a couple of seasons in Banff, and asked me if I wanted to go with her, and I said, why the hell not? And came over here, as I said, November 9th, 2009. I'll never forget. It's actually been a very pivotal date in my world a few times, it's quite odd, actually. And was out in Banff, surprise, surprise, for a while. And then I met the American traveling through Alaska, and went back to Australia. Then he followed me over to Banff and followed me over to Japan. And that's when it kind of went to pieces, and I came back to Canada instead of going back to Australia. Or the plan was actually to move out to Santa Rosa. And c'est la vie. 13 years later, I find myself in Calgary with the craft brewing business and creating communities. So yeah.
So do we get to keep you then? Are your roots now in Calgary, or are you going to fly off here one day?
No, you get to keep me. So I'm a permanent resident. I was supposed to get my citizenship in 2020, and a pandemic hit. I don't know if you heard about it.
No.
It was hyper local, just super
Oh,
hyper local. Yeah,
so
out in
it's
the
some
north.
type of out Calgary bid or something?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
out by like Highlands Park, Tuxedo area, and Cal, just hyper local. So so I lost my job, and I needed that $700 that was going to be spent on my citizenship to be put on either my credit card or pay for my rent. Didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm still a permanent resident, and I will one day get my citizenship. One day.
One day.
Yeah, one day when my feelings don't fall out like it
Uh,
did today.
exactly. Well, for the people here who are watching and listening to us, before Christina and I pressed the record button, we were talking about how today was a day. For myself, the lights burnt out here, and I've got this light here on the side, and I look like my dad today, and I don't know what to think, but I'm feeling it here today, and I don't know if that's good or bad. And Christina, seconds before we came on air, what happened to you?
Yeah, I was eating a wine gum, and it pulled out a filling. So that's what happened to me.
Yeah,
And here we are.
here we are,
And here we are.
sharing our joy and love of life today. Well, let's get your street credibility here. How are you connected to our rainbow community?
Well, I've been an advocate, an ally, for a really long time. It turns out, 95% of the male friends that I grew up turned out to be gay. And so my nickname back in Australia was Princess. There was actually a lot of the queens running around, didn't actually know my first name. They just knew me as Princess. I worked in one of the premier gay clubs and drag clubs for a number of years. And then finally, I had a really honest conversation with myself. And I was like, bitches, bye. I actually, fun fact, only came out to my parents last year.
Oh, well, congratulations for that, because
Thank
that's huge.
you.
That's
I
huge.
was figuring that they probably have already guessed. But one of the things I look back at, I ran away from a lot of things. There was, I would have said it was my wanderlust before I did all my therapy. But I ran away from a lot of trauma, and I think I didn't have big conversations with myself for a really long time, and I didn't talk to anybody about my sexuality for a really long time. But I was a huge advocate for everybody else flying the flag, and it was just not something that I knew how to say to myself or say to other people.
Yeah, it's very typical with many of my female friends who have come out as being bisexual. They have mentioned many things like yourself, being an advocate, being a huge supporter. And part of that was hiding, because when you're advocating for others, you're not advocating for yourself. And then there comes that time when you have to have that conversation.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So my glasses are really dirty. I'm going to take them off. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and people are often quite shocked when I tell them that, because of how integrated into the community I've been since I was a teenager. And yeah, and actually when my gay friend, like my gay friends were super shocked, because they were always my old roommate Stuart, he used to, when I would get out and I'd get out my power tools and stuff, he's like, oh, you got your lesbian toolbox out, have you, love? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fixing things. Okay, I'm fixing the things that you broke. But we used to joke that I was a gay man trapped in a woman's body.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by any of this, and I just met you, Christina. I'm like,
so when I did come, it goes, oh, that makes sense, your lesbian toolbox and your sexual exploits, like. Yes, Lynn, that makes sense.
So is this one where potentially viewers can get a hold of me to say, hey, about this Christina that you had on, is she mingling?
It's a very interesting question. I am, and I'm not. I have some relationship trauma, not even going to lie. And I am coming through 2 years of pandemic, starting a business. I'm in massive growth mode with XHale right now, and I'm really enjoying my solace. It's been a long road getting to this point, and I'm not short of options to go on dates and spend time with people. I kind of just I'm really, it's not that I don't want to date, I'm just really enjoying my solace. I'm really enjoying my peace.
Perfect.
And I'm really enjoying my journey right now, and I want to forge my way where I'm going, knowing that I am doing what I need to do for me. So yeah, I'm not against it, and I'm not turning away from it. It's just not something I'm intentionally seeking.
Yeah. The best piece of advice I ever received was to get rid of the fantasy of two hearts finding each other, two halves of heart. You
Bullshit.
got to have your full heart, your full body, your full being, and then you can find someone else, and that time is right, and you're coming together as two unique, distinct people forging a role, and you're on your journey right now. Speaking of your journey, let's talk about XHale Brew Company. Let me bring a website to the screen, and I'll mention this to everybody: www.xhale brew brew co.ca. So exhalebrewco.ca. This is your baby.
This is the
You
baby.
were saying with the ex-husband that you would birth a beer company instead. The visual image of Suds, just no. My mom is probably listening to this right now and be like,
Sorry, Mom.
yeah, Douglas, you were good, but now you've just taken it way too far. So XHale Brew Co., what is it?
It has been a baby that I guess I've been giving birth to for the best part of the last decade. It's not something that I decided to do overnight or in a matter of months or so I started to learn how to brew when I was living in Santa Rosa, out in Northern California, which if you're a beer person, you know that is Pliny country. I kind of fell in love with the process, and I was already I was pretty blessed that I came from a family. I mean, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor. We were definitely working class. But on Sundays, we cooked together from the fresh produce that my grandfather grew in his backyard. And my father was really into wine, and taught me that in Australia, you don't have to be rich to drink good wine. So I was traipsed around to vineyards in the back of my parents' 1978 Mazda 626 that was a bomb. It wasn't the Mercedes and the fancy cars that everybody else had at the vineyards, but my parents spent money on experiences and travel rather than fancy things. And that's kind of the family that I grew up on. And I'm so blessed that and grateful that I grew up in a family that developed my palate and developed my language in and around food and drinking experiences. So when I moved to Northern California, I kind of walked into the garage where my ex and his father were brewing. And I looked at this and I was like, I've got a science degree. I'm pretty sure I can maybe do this better. So I decided that that's what I was going to do, and I was going to do it better. I applied for University of Davis for their brewmasters school out there, and you have to have a science degree to get in. And I was accepted, and then I broke up with the American, and I didn't go back. So I decided to come back here, and I took what I'd started because we were going to be gifted a property by his family who all redneck dairy farmers, and had kind of properties dotted throughout Northern California, and the goal was to build a brewery on that. So it's just something that I've never let go of, and I'm really grateful for, even though that relationship didn't work out, and like dodged a bullet by not ending up in the States, let's face it.
And people say, "Oh, California," but Northern California is very conservative, from my
It
understanding.
is. Yeah, definitely. You definitely can be. It can. I think it's that weird, like, where the far right and the far left have that like middle meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That weird intersection. Anyway, don't get me started on that. It's such an odd intersection. So I kind of dodged a bullet there and didn't end up in the States, and came back here and kind of got on with my life of trying to get my PR. And I decided to just continue traveling for beer and drinking beer and reading things about beer and studying beer while I did my other things, and made a break into the industry. Actually, I decided that I was going to give when I got my permanent residency, I decided that I was going to give my, how long, 15-year career working in sports and recreations management. I was going to give that the flick and have a complete career sea change, and started off bartending in a beer-centric venue, and learnt draft line maintenance systems, and then went on to work in production packaging with Village Brewing, and then went on to manage beer categories at a private a liquor store here. And then that's when Zero Issue picked me up before they opened, and I took over their social media marketing and sales role. My first kind of break into the industry. And yeah, c'est la vie. Here we are. It's been a rocky road. I'm so grateful for every experience that I've had along the way. I've been able to go into other people's businesses, see how it works, beta test things, navigate a very interesting het, white, cis industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid for it dearly. a couple of times because I was treading into places that people didn't want me to tread, doing things in the way that I did them because I did things differently, and people were noticing me, and I was taking up shelf space and taps that people thought that wasn't going to go away ever. And I've been yelled at and who the fuck do you think you are? You don't deserve your place in industry, by another brewery owner in town. And people who've wanted to see me fail. Being called a diversity. I just got the job because I'm a diversity hire. But I've sat Cicerone
That's so frustrating.
Sat Cicerone exams and BJCP exams, and been brewing for the last decade or so, and involved myself in many facets of the business. And that was the whole thing of when I got my PR, my permanent residency. I wanted to treat the next couple of years as being my university degree of understanding what the industry is and how it works, and looking at it from many different perspectives. So when I did decide to, get my brewery planning up and running, I had this very niche experience and a broad spectrum of experience, both from brewery settings and accounts management from the other side, from buying, to be able to have the insight that I'm so grateful to have now, even though it's not been, an easy road, so to speak.
Well, let's talk about some of the product. And for the people who are listening here, I just want you to imagine what it would taste like from what I'm going to be telling you right now. The first product is Anti-Reens, and it's a plum pudding porter. We also have Mates for Life. It's a coffee British golden ale. They Weren't Raging Against White Goods, which is a Belgian Saison. I don't know particularly what this is, so I'm going to have to get your expertise later. We have one that's called I Won't Do What You Tell Me. See You Next Tuesday, which we're definitely going to talk about. It's a dry, hot Aussie style drink. And of course, your first one, I believe, your first drink, which is titled Impeachable, a hopped peach wheat ale. So we've got here 6 or 7 beers that you can get on your shelves. Wide variety of tastes here. Now, I do want to first come to the See You Next Tuesday. C, in this case, being SEE. Not a U as in yeah, but we get the idea. Why did you want to create and title one of your drinks See You Next Tuesday?
You know what the funny thing is? Canadians see me like, oh, I really want to say that word. I'm like, I give you permission. I give you permission to say that word. And there is a couple of reasons why. In Australia, we use it quite affectionately. Mm-hmm. Like we'll say, oh, have you met Doug? He's a pretty good guy. You met him? Oh, yeah. I like him.
You can give it to me. I'm ready for it.
And we'll use it quite affectionately. We're not offended. We don't use it to degrade people in the worst. I mean, we can, and with intention, but it's the same thing as calling someone a dick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not offended by the word dick. Why is my genitalia as a woman so offensive? Why has the patriarchy taken my genitalia and turned it into something so grotesque? I'm not subscribing to that. I've got one. It's rather lovely. And as a bisexual woman, they are lovely. I know that I don't need your input on this, Douglas. Okay.
I have no input to give. I'm like,
and I'm taking back the power of it over here.
Love it.
Just taking, yeah, it's and if you take the power back of something, then I can't be offended by it, and I can't be degraded by it. There is, I'm actually going to do a fun promo with another female entrepreneur out in Cochrane, and she has a company called Go Mug Yourself. I go look it up on Instagram. It is amazing. Anyway, she sent me something today, and she said, I made something, and everything I did, I thought of you. And it actually has like a lovely little sparkly picture of kind of like an outline of a vagina, and it just says magnificent cunt across it. And she said, should we put this on a tumbler or a mug? I said, I think we should put this on both. So like this is how we should be embracing this word. I want to so my cats are going mental right now.
The cats are agreeing with you, going, yeah, give us more.
They're going absolutely mental right now. So, and the other thing is, so all my core beer actually has a community give back on it. This beer uses all Australian hops on a Kolsch base. So it has normally Kolsch, it's a German style beer, and it generally has early edition hops because the certain bittering acids within those hops are really low, and you put them in at the start of the boil so you can draw as much of those acids out and it won't be too bitter. Whereas these Australian hops that I use, they have a higher bitterness acid in them. And so I use a late addition on that instead of an early addition. And then I do a dry hop of another hop called Galaxy, which has these, and just a lovely, like, delicate 2 gram per liter kind of like little zhuzh on top, which gives it that melon characteristics and those kind of like creamy white floral and a little bit of that pine. As it warms, you get like a little bit of like this pineapple that rolls through. It's just gorgeous.
Christina, isn't beer just supposed to be like Molson Canadian, Labatt's, and you just drink it and you're done with it?
I mean, if you're a basic bitch, that's fine. Did I say that?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, you know what? If that's what you like, that's what you like, and that's fine. And that's, you know what, that's what you like. That's great. I am going to have a very honest and vulnerable moment with you. One of my guilty pleasures in life is a Labatt Blue. A Labatt Blue and chicken fingers. Fuck me, amazing at the end of a shitty day.
Yes.
Yeah. So, if that's what you like, then go for it. But yeah, this the next Tuesday Aussie Kolsch is now. It was only going to be a one-off, but it turns out it's now my bestseller, and I have trouble sometimes keeping it on the shelf. And partial proceeds from all of my core beer will be going back to a non-for-profit as part of my the core values of XHale. Our core values of XHale is standing in service for our community and being authentic in our being and who we are. And being okay to call a spade in doing so and having hard conversations. But what See You Next Tuesday does is partial proceeds ongoing every quarter gets donated to the Calgary Kangaroos Football Club. They have a non-for-profit youth sporting program. They don't turn any family away, whether they can afford it or not. So I actually sponsor the families that can't afford that. The reason being for that is I'm late diagnosed ADHD. But I come from a family that was, going back to, we didn't have fancy things, and I got most of my clothes from hand-me-downs or going to the thrift store. But my parents spent, the money that they had on providing experience for me. And so for 20 years, I was put through, ballet, tap and jazz, and I did horse riding, and I played Aussie rules football, and I ran cross country. I've been an athlete, and then I got into skiing later on in life. And they've funded some of my world travels to be able to do that, helped fund some of my world travels to be able to do that. And it's because of sport and that outlet for me that gave me a sense of accountability. It gave me discipline. It forced me to have to be present in the moment, which I think without that influence in my life, I probably would have ended up in a lot scarier places than what I did, and I want to be able to pass my privilege on to other kids and other families who might not have that privilege.
Wonderful to hear. Wonderful to hear. There's something else that we share, and we'll come back to the beer and the crafting world in just a little bit. A few weeks ago, I went and got my naloxone training certificate, and we did that because we have an organization that I help organize on every Friday called Pride Corner on White, and you never know who and what situation you're going to come across. Why is naloxone training so important to you?
You're going to make me all emotional.
It's the freest therapy you can ever have.
Oh, cool. So I can stop paying thousands of dollars for my therapy.
Exactly.
Amazing. So we're just going to do this every week.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Well, it comes from a level of places, but I guess the real motivating piece for me personally is I lost a very dear friend to an accidental poisoning back in 2019 in May. 2 months after I lost my best friend of 26 years, who had been struggling with addiction for the best part of a decade. He was self-medicating bipolar. And he intentionally overdosed. So in the spate of 2 months, I lost two people I love. I've had my own lived experiences, not with opioids, but definitely with inhalation. I worked in nightclubs and gay bars for the best part of the formative years of my late teens and early 20s. I have seen it all. And when I say clubs, I worked also in a club that was a 24-hour run club. So we have 24-hour licenses in places in Australia. And yeah, I've seen and experienced it all. And in Luke's and Paul's honor, and I don't want their deaths to be in vain. And from my own lived experience, from a perspective, from a perspective of being an onlooker, but also being in the culture as well. I want to make sure that, people don't die. And I want to destigmatize, because the reason why I was able to get through out alive, some of the shit I did, I look back and I'm like, how the fuck if I got to, I turned 40 in March. And I often am perplexed and surprised when I think about some of the dumb shit that I, have done and the situations that I put myself in. We have this stigma around drug use that is so dated. But drug users look exactly like you and me. I produce a drug, legally produce a drug and sell it for a profit. And I agree that I need to pay my taxes and excise to cushion that. But part of my responsibility as well, I think, and part of my corporate responsibility is that as a drug producer, my drug is no different from the drug that you use. It's just that mine's legal. And, why are we stigmatizing? We've essentially made trauma a criminal offense. We often characterize drug users or junkies, and I hate that word, as the houseless. But unfortunately, what people don't realize is that the statistics are that people who most look like you, Doug, who are men aged between 35 and 50, are dying in their own homes.
It will take you an hour or two of your life to go get naloxone training, and you never know. You may have to use it one day. Be ready for it. There's a lot to do about you, but I want to go back to the craft beer. And let's talk about your first one, Impeachable. Now, just based on that name, I can figure out what and who that could be about. It's again a hot peach wheat ale. I will simply say that this beer would be the only thing associated with that man that I would want down my throat because it's been shoved down our throats for many, many years. So this one would go down nicely. But why was your first one Impeachable?
Because I wanted to launch my brand with the brand voice that it was going to have, which was unapologetic. That individual who became the leader, essentially, of the free world, the largest First Nation in our global scale and to economy. The fact that an individual like that was able to garner so much power, I just couldn't. I couldn't sit there and not say anything. I've always been very socially and politically motivated. I have, especially over the last couple of years, been more vocal. And I've left communities. I left a whole martial arts community because I was tired of banging my head up against the wall, of being able to show people respect that did not show me respect. And being told that Trump was an okay bloke. There's reasons why hundreds of thousands of women took to the streets of Washington. And I decided to do something in a very white, hetero male space that no one had done yet. Mm-hmm. And I decided to be me because I give zero fucks anymore about being somebody else.
Isn't that a great feeling to have?
It's so empowering.
I've only had that in the last few years. Beforehand, there was part of me that cared, but the last couple of years, no, I've figured out who I am finally, and warts and all, which is great. You mentioned your company, being unapologetic. You mentioned before about how difficult it has been for a woman entering into this field, shelf space, comments from others. Now, I know that my question spans just culture, but why are women who are in the craft beer industry not allowed to be unapologetic?
Because we have a patriarchal system that says that you have to color in between certain lines. And I've, understanding why I could be the center of activity and attention, and I still feel like I am the eye of the storm and there is no one around me. I think the reason why we're made to have certain voices or we're made to sit in certain roles is because if we have to be somebody else to be in that industry. And I think that a lot of women have had to be someone else to be in the industry, and have had to play by the rules that were laid before us, and that you don't talk about politics, or you only cater to a certain majority group or opinion, and you have to play within those lines, otherwise corporate won't buy you. Fuck it. Like, seriously, fuck it. Unless we start to blow these arbitrary rules apart. And I've decided that my nipples are not offensive either. I've decided that cunt is not an offensive word, and I'm taking back the power. And I'm going to play by my rules because I'm not like you. And there is still a place for me. And guess what? I'm really fucking good at what I do. Whether you like it or not, I'm not going anywhere.
Amen. Amen. I understand you completely with that. It's kind of related in a way, but there's the last couple of years have been difficult, of course, for all of us. And for myself, I've been working in my industry where there's no worries when it came to jobs. Um, the last couple of years, there's been struggle. I woke up one day about 4 or 5 months ago and I went, I'm doing this podcast, which is very, very gay, even though we don't talk about homosexuality a ton because we are celebrating all facets of a person. But we're doing this. On Friday nights, I'm organizing something that is very gay within our community. And then I was like, work wise, though, I've had to live a very straight life when it comes to work. And so my goal with my work life is now to be what a title that we called Rob Borowski's episode here on here. I want to be a professional homosexual.
Beauty. I love Rob.
Because I don't want to give a fuck anymore. And I want to be loud and I want to be obnoxious if I need to, but I want to be able to create space. And we need to do that. And that's space for people like you and people like me who talk and are loud. And even though I have difficulty saying the word cunt, it's difficult, but I will try to,
You've got to say, you magnificent cunt.
Yeah.
We'll have lessons. We'll have lessons. We'll have lessons over here.
I will ever say these words together. That is a magnificent cunt.
Yes. So there is a whole Sex and the City episode about an artist who does plaster replications of cunts, and him and his wife have their cunt studio. And there, you've got to look it up. I grew up on Sex and the City. It was a thing. And one of the things, so Carrie goes in and has a plaster mold done, and the wife stands there and she goes, "Oh dear, you have a beautiful cunt." And it's just so heartfelt and loving. And Carrie's kind of like laying there with
spread eagle,
legs spread eagled, and like, okay.
Well, and we don't, unfortunately for most of us in the world, we don't celebrate what we have, what God, who I think looks like Alanis Morissette, but that's me.
Perfect. I understand why.
Who Alanis gives us, we don't celebrate our bodies. I am a heavier set, I say properly plump individual. I have my love handles. I'm learning to love myself, but I've never ever loved my body ever. But I am so grateful for someone like you, Christina, because you have been part of a calendar that was created. And this is a calendar that we promoted in the Matt Phillips episode because he was part of it as well. So can you tell us more about this magnificent calendar that has been created?
The one that you're going to be in for 2023, right?
Cystic acne, scars, plump body and all, I will consider it definitely.
I would love that. That would be amazing.
Oh, I just got the chills. I'm scared, but I could I pose with Matt?
Oh, for sure. Matt's done it for 2 years running. And I have a wonderful story about the 2021 when we did the first shoot in 2020. And we did it at Craft Beer Collective here in Calgary. But I will tell you about how the calendar started. So one of the things I always joked about was that, people like, oh, would you ever pose nude for something? And I'm like, what, for charity? Of course I would. And when 2020 hit, I'd always been involved in like breast cancer research funding, and because it runs in the family. So Arnie Reen's Plum Pudding Porter has a give back on it as well to the Alberta Cancer Foundation for the breast cancer. And I'd always been involved in Movember and then also suicide prevention stuff, which is where Mates for Life is linked with as well. And then in 2020, we just couldn't do events. And so I was like, okay, so how do we raise money and awareness and still give back to the community and have positive messages? And I was kind of like, I have an idea. It kind of wasn't that. I actually microdose. I get my best ideas microdosing. Sometimes I take a little bit beyond microdosing. I meditate and I come up with the intention that I want, and then I have a jolly old little time, and I can like flip my brain over. And so I came up with this idea, and my dear friend Ryan Orr, who I am so grateful, we have some very different opinions and life stances on things, but we continue to challenge each other in the most compassionate way. And I just like, he's one of those people that at the end of the phone call, he says, I love you. I'm like, I love you too. Stupid bastard. That's fine. Anyway, we know each other from the Muay Thai circuit days when I used to fight. And I called him and I said, I've got an idea. And he went, oh, shit, Christina's got ideas. And I said, I've got an idea for this calendar. I want to do an XHale calendar with Live Free Photography. If you check out his site, it's livefreephotography.ca on Instagram. He's so talented. I said, I want to do this calendar. Would you be the photographer for it? I have no idea how I'm going to pay you, but we'll work it out. And he's like, you're not going to pay me. We're just going to go and have fun. And I've climbed up trees naked more times in my life than anybody should climb up trees for this individual naked. For this individual, including in the middle of the Nevada desert in midnight. So we put this, so the first year was, it's all 100%, 100% proceeds are donated. So the first year was split between Movember and a breast cancer foundation. I now sit on the board of Each and Every. So we're a coalition of businesses, mostly alcohol producers now nationwide. And I was a founding board member with Ewan Thompson in the fight with our opioid crisis. So 100% of the proceeds of 2022 went there, but it is a cheeky, naked, liberating, body accepting, all-inclusive, diverse calendar that is just such a joy every year to put together. And Matt Phillips, God bless him, Alanis, bless him, he was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. And drove down from Edmonton for the day, and turns up and strips off, and he's got his gorgeous little pink thong on and his crop top, and gets up on a bar, and he's beaming, like the smile that he has. And we do this whole photo shoot, and I've watched that individual over the last few years, and he's become one of my closest friends, just break and rebuild himself. And that, what I would find out later, was a very pivotal moment in his journey of accepting his body and accepting his ability to express his sexuality and embrace himself. And when we finished the photo shoot, he hugged me, and we both just started bawling. And he's gone on to do more photo shoots since, and just really be who he is. And that's one of the things that people are like, oh, I wouldn't know how. I was like, it's fucking liberating. Like, you just got to get past the first 5 minutes of like trying to cover yourself, and then when you realize, like, we don't fucking care. Like, okay, I'll get naked, whatever. It's just a nipple. It's okay. And we've once again, it's been a patriarchal standard that nakedness is crude sexuality. And how about we just desexualize our bodies a little more? Maybe we'd have less rapes as a multi-rape survivor. Nakedness as a sin is not a sin. Your nipples are allowed on Instagram. Why aren't mine? Why am mine so sexualized?
That's one thing I'll never understand, ever, 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 of just why we criminalize the woman's nipple. I never will understand that.
I just had another post. It was a super blurry nipple, like in the dark. It's a beautiful night shot from one of the first one of the first calendar that we did. And there's three guys and two of us girls, and I've kind of got my arm down, and it's like it's a blurry nipple, and it's been on Instagram for 5 months, and it was only just taken down. Instagram deemed it as offensive. It was sensitive. It's like, my fucking
the social
God.
platforms, Facebook and Instagram, we love them, but that's with quotation marks around it because they make some decisions. Include Twitter with that as well. Christina, we started off getting your street cred when you're talking about yourself, and you mentioned just recently talking to your parents and recently discovering your bisexuality. What does this knowledge bring to you just in everyday life? And it's not, dating or lack of dating or anything like that, but what does that knowledge or that strength give you?
It probably wasn't a recent revelation. It's probably like a been happening over 10 years. It's only been recently I've been able to have over the last couple of years, I've been able to have the conversation and kind of slowly like get myself used to saying it before I say it more often. One of the revelations that happen is that my bisexuality is a lot more palatable for most people. It is my bisexuality as a woman is sexualized, which is why it's a lot more palatable, whereas a man's bisexuality is not as palatable because it's the patriarchal system that doesn't want to sexualize that. And that's
I'll also jump in because the community, the rainbow community, has not helped with that as well. Because growing up, lesbian, gay, and if you were a male bisexual person, that was always just going, oh, they're just testing the waters until they fully come out later on. And we put the stigma upon that male within this community as well, unfortunately.
Yeah. I probably didn't come out in the way that I did, and part of why I ran away was I was told by somebody who I love dearly and who loves me dearly and unconditionally, without knowing, and with the knowledge and the culture that they had when I was 16, that you could be straight and you could be gay, but you can't be in between.
Yep.
You got to pick one or the other. And I think at that stage, kind of, you and I just went, oh, okay, all right, okay, and then just didn't do anything. And I've always been a hypersexual person. I've always been very sexually expressive. I just wasn't sexually expressive in the way that I wanted to be sexually expressive until I left Australia, and I felt like that I could, because I wasn't there anymore. So yeah, it's the other thing that has been a revelation to me is not only is my sexuality hypersexualized by the het cis community, there is also the other side where I'm not gay enough, as he said. I haven't got it as much. I haven't got it from the queer community, I'm going to be honest, but I have got it from my straighty potato community, where I had another brewery owner say, how are you, like, you're not even, like, you're bi, it's not really gay. It's not really queer. Is it like it was almost like, oh, is this a marketing ploy that like to I'm
Are you
like,
supposed to
oh
be wearing
fuck.
plaid with your U-Haul, with your tool belt, and all those other stereotypes at
Yeah,
all times?
apparently, yeah. So, I'm not gay enough on the other side either. Um, yeah, yeah, and the expectation is that is essentially the expectation is because I don't always dress in plaid and my steel cap boots, and sometimes I want to don a semi see-through top and uh, a pair of heels and straight, how to do. And I want to put makeup on and have long blonde hair or long pink. It's actually blonde right now, but it's going to go pink very soon. Let's face it. Or purple. Purple. No, definitely purple for my 30th. For my 30th. For my 40th. 30th. I wish. I think that's been an interesting one for me. Yeah, some people have asked me, like, do I like regret not coming out earlier? I'd like, no, I don't regret that. I did it when I felt like it was right, and that's not wrong or right to anyone. And if there's anyone still not sure, like, it's okay to be not sure, and it's okay to like not be comfortable saying it out loud. Get comfortable saying it to yourself first
Yeah.
before you
And
feel like you have to say it. You don't even have to say it to anybody else if you don't want to. Fuck it, who
yeah,
cares?
live your life, and there is no instruction guide on what you're supposed to do step by step. Live your life, feel what's comfortable, make sure you are safe at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're safe when the time comes for you to express yourself, and that's even to yourself. And that's what's most important. And realize that within the rainbow community, we have a variety, and we cannot erase any bits about ourselves and have to
Mm-hmm.
look out for each other at all times.
Yeah, I think that the biggest one is as long as you're not holding shame around it, like don't hold something in because you are shameful or you feel shameful about it. Shameful, living in a place of shame is not good for anyone. Um, if you're living in a place of shame and you're not ready to say it, at least say it to somebody who loves you unconditionally. I'm always there. I'm like
Yeah,
my contact information is extremely public. If you can't say it to anyone else, always know you can come and say it to me.
perfect. Today on Tales of the 2S LGBTQ+, we've been talking to Christina Owczarek. Let's bring up your website once again, www.exhalebrewco.ca. That's XHaleBrewco.ca. And on all the different social medias, once again, Exhale Brew Co. XHaleBrewco. As we come to the end of our conversation with each other, Christina, two questions. And I somewhat know the answer to this, but I want to play on that word exhale a little bit. And ages ago, there was the movie Waiting to Exhale, which centered on four women living in Phoenix. And they talked about relationships and the men in their lives. And all of them were holding their breath until the day they could feel comfortable in a committed relationship with someone. Are you waiting to exhale yourself, or is Exhale Brew Co. the thing that makes you complete?
Um, wow, that is a lot. Are we ever complete? I don't know. Is that ever
That's
a
next
thing?
week's therapy session.
As a perfectionist, there is no such thing as perfection. um, yeah. For me, exhale is a place where I can finally just fucking be me. And the X I mean, there's a couple of things around the X, and my nickname's Xtina. But the X also marks a spot. I'm not fucking moving from it. And I want to give everybody else X's to mark their spot and hold space for people who traditionally haven't had space held for them. And the exhale is just being able to breathe easier because you can be authentic. And we love you because you can be authentic. Just don't be a cunt about it.
Amen. Amen to that.
See what I did there? See what I did
Yeah,
there?
that was wonderful. That was like, yeah, we're good. We're good. You got it. Well, Christina, we're going to make sure that everybody gets your social media. And whenever we advertise this episode, we're going to, of course, put you out there to the world, because one thing that I've learned by doing these episodes is that you get introduced to people and you become smitten. And here I'm smitten with Christina. And here, for some reason, I volunteered to be potentially in a calendar. That's scary, but that's many months away. But I'm excited just that everyone is going to have you in their knowledge and in their orbit. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you for the platform and giving us the platform to do it, and having a love and a passion to be able to create that community. It's the thing about XHale as well, as creating community connection through craft, and you're connecting people through your craft as well. That means a lot.
I appreciate that. Well, okay, we're going to be connecting up more times, and this is not a one-off. So that's a perfect thing. On behalf of Christina Owczarek from XHale Brew Company, my name is Douglas Parsons, reminding you to be good and always text when you get home. Oh, and Christina, I love you.
I love you too.
Goodbye for now, everybody.